5,000 years beneath the earth. If they could speak, would they recognize the stories told in their name? Words are dangerous, especially when they come from 5,000 years ago. Because sometimes a single word can change an entire civilization, or even a story believed by millions of people. And sometimes that word was never written at all. Yet people begin to read it as if it had always been there. Much of the story that millions of people believe today is based on a handful of clay tablets baked beneath the scorching sun of ancient Mesopotamia. And most of those tablets are incomplete. So what did these tablets really say? How much of the story told today actually comes from them? History books usually begin the story with the Sumerians. But human history did not begin with the Sumerians. There were people before them. There were settlements. There were beliefs, and most likely, thousands of stories that have been lost forever. But the Sumerians left us something different: memory, because they were among the first great civilizations to record their thoughts in clay, in the region we now call Mesopotamia, across southern Iraq, eastern Syria, southeastern Turkey, and the lands stretching into western Iran. Millions of people live their lives. Farmers plow their fields. Children play in the streets. People build homes just as they have for thousands of years. But for a very long time, most of them had no idea what lay beneath their feet, because the soil of Mesopotamia was no ordinary soil. Beneath every layer was another era. Beneath every era, another city, and beneath every city, another story waiting to be uncovered. The civilization we now call the Sumerians lay sleeping somewhere within those layers. So, who discovered them first? The truth is, there is no definite answer. Unlike many of history's greatest discoveries, the Sumerian tablets were not found in a single day. And the first person to uncover one was most likely not an archaeologist. Perhaps it was a farmer whose plow struck something hard beneath the earth. Perhaps it was a villager digging the foundation of a house who noticed fragments of baked clay emerging from the soil. Or perhaps it was a child at play who picked up a strange piece covered with unfamiliar markings and brought it home. We simply don't know. But we do know one thing. For thousands of years, people continued to live above these forgotten remains. Until one day, the strange objects emerging from the ground began to attract attention. They were covered with unfamiliar symbols, repeating signs, and they did not look like ordinary decorations. It was as if they were trying to tell us something. As these discoveries spread from village to village, they gradually caught the attention of researchers and governments alike. Then came the travelers, the explorers, and finally, the archaeologists. Throughout the 19th century, large-scale excavations began across different regions of Mesopotamia. As layer after layer of earth was removed, entire cities emerged. Beneath those cities, more cities appeared, and between them, thousands of clay tablets Some were perfectly preserved, others had been broken. Some survived with only a few lines remaining, others had lost half their contents. Yet they all asked the same question: what did these signs mean? At that point, researchers began classifying the artifacts discovered across different regions. Some came from Assyrian cities, some belonged to the Babylonian period, others traced back to the Akkadian civilization, and some to one of the oldest written traditions in human history, the Sumerians, Austin Henry Layard, Hormuzd Rassam, and many other researchers spent years working throughout these lands. As the excavations continued, archaeologists uncovered more than tablets. They uncovered epics, kings, gods, wars, creation stories, and one name the entire world would eventually come to know: Gilgamesh. But there was one problem. The tablets had been found, yet no one could read them. The real mystery was only beginning. Some of the most important documents in human history had finally returned to the surface, but no one knew what they said. Discovering an ancient civilization was difficult. Understanding it would prove even harder. To read these tablets, we first had to understand the people who wrote them, and that journey takes us back nearly 5,000 years to southern Mesopotamia, to the fertile land between the Tigris and Euphrates, much of which lies within modern-day Iraq. It was here that one of the most influential civilizations in human history began to rise, the Sumerians. But the most remarkable thing about the Sumerians was not the cities they built. It was the thoughts they left behind. Today, we do not know them only through ruined temples, stone walls, or ancient monuments. We know them through their minds, because they wrote down what they thought, and those thoughts survived beneath the earth for thousands of years. There were merchants in Ur, rulers in Uruk, priests in Nippur, communities in Eridu preserving ancient traditions. And throughout all of these cities, people shared something extraordinary. For the first time in history, humanity was learning not merely to speak, but to preserve what had been spoken. They were writing, yet writing was not invented to record history. At least, not at first. No one sat down hoping to leave a message for people thousands of years in the future. The original purpose was far more ordinary. Grain records, livestock inventories, taxes, trade accounts, warehouse supplies. Who delivered what? Who received what? In other words, part of humanity's earliest written legacy was not an epic. It was accounting. But something unexpected happened as people learned to write. They began recording more than goods. They began recording ideas. First came prayers, then laws, the achievements of kings, the histories of cities, beliefs, fears, hopes, and eventually, the great questions people asked about the universe itself were carved into clay tablets. By then, these tablets were no longer just economic records. They had become the memory of an entire civilization. Thousands of years later, when archaeologists unearthed those tablets, they discovered far more than trade documents. They found something extraordinary: the stories of kings, accounts of great floods, creation narratives, epics describing the relationship between gods and humanity. Texts that are still discussed today were seeing daylight once again. the Epic of Gilgamesh, Atrahasis, Enuma Elish, and hundreds more. But another problem soon emerged. The tablets had been discovered, yet no one knew what the symbols carved into them actually meant. The voices of the people who wrote them had survived, but their language had long since fallen silent. No one knew what these wedge-shaped marks were saying. Were they an alphabet, a system of pictures, or an entirely forgotten form of writing? For nearly 2,000 years, those questions remained unanswered until a monumental inscription carved into a towering cliff hundreds of kilometers away from Mesopotamia changed everything. Today, it is known as the Behistun inscription. At first glance, it appears to be nothing more than an ancient text carved high into a rock face. But what made it extraordinary was that the same inscription had been written in 3 different languages: Old Persian, Elamite, and Akkadian, just as the Rosetta Stone unlocked Egyptian hieroglyphs. The Behistun inscription became the key to deciphering cuneiform. In 1835, a British Army officer and scholar named Henry Creswick Rawlinson risked his life to solve this mystery. Before him stood the towering cliffs of Behistun, rising hundreds of meters above the ground, almost perfectly vertical. Below him, a deadly drop. In his hands, nothing more than ropes, paper, and determination. Rawlinson climbed those enormous cliffs by clinging to the rock with his bare hands. He fought against fierce winds, loose stones beneath his feet, and the constant danger of falling to his death. Sometimes he remained suspended on the cliff for hours, carefully copying every cuneiform sign by hand. What seemed almost like madness did not last for weeks or even months. It took years, yet every drop of sweat shed upon those cliffs brought humanity one step closer to recovering a forgotten language. Rawlinson was soon joined by other brilliant scholars: the Irish clergyman Edward Hincks, the German linguist Julius Oppert, and the English scientist William Henry Fox Talbot. Working independently, each began studying the same inscriptions. Then, in 1857, the Royal Asiatic Society in London conducted a remarkable experiment. The same cuneiform text was sent to 4 different experts. None of them knew what the others were translating. Each produced an independent translation. When the results were compared, they were almost identical. For the first time, the scholarly world reached a shared conclusion. Cuneiform could finally be read, and after nearly 5,000 years of silence, an ancient civilization spoke once again. But the first thing researchers found was not what many people imagine today. It was not the Anunnaki, not extraterrestrials, not hidden technologies, and not mysterious secrets. What they found was everyday life. Some of the oldest administrative tablets discovered in Uruk contained nothing more than simple records. 29,086 measures of barley delivered, transferred into storage over a period of 37 months. Another tablet listed nothing but sheep. Another recorded the amount of beer delivered to a temple. Another documented the number of goats received. Some of humanity's earliest written records were not epic stories. They were accounting ledgers. As excavations continued, new kinds of tablets emerged. In Nippur, archaeologists uncovered ration tablets. They carefully recorded the daily grain allocations given to workers, adult men, women, children, each receiving different amounts of barley. What we now call a payroll may have first appeared nearly 5,000 years ago on clay tablets. Then educational tablets were discovered. These surprised researchers because for the first time we could hear the voices of ordinary people. In the school tablets found at Nippur, students practiced writing the same words over and over again. Some tablets even preserved the corrections made by their teachers. One school text, published by the renowned Sumerologist Samuel Noah Kramer, records the words of a student describing his day. "I went to school. My teacher was not pleased with my handwriting. He beat me with a reed cane," written nearly 4,000 years ago. These lines tell the story of a child's ordinary school day. And then researchers uncovered what is perhaps the world's first customer complaint. A merchant named Nanny from the city of Ur sent an angry letter to a copper trader named Nasir. The tablet reads approximately, "You did not deliver the quality of copper that you promised. You sent my messenger back empty-handed. From now on, I will no longer accept goods from you." Written nearly 3,800 years ago. This tablet is now widely recognized as the earliest known customer complaint. Humanity had changed, but human nature had hardly changed at all. As excavations continued, legal texts began to emerge. The Code of Ur-Namma, one of the oldest known law codes in human history. One article states, "If a man kills another man, that man shall be put to death." Another declares that anyone who gives false testimony must pay a fine. People were not simply trading goods, they were building societies, creating laws, seeking justice. But the tablets told far more than legal history. People were also recording the sky. As excavations continued, researchers uncovered hundreds of astronomical tablets, especially those dating to the Babylonian period. They carefully recorded the phases of the moon, solar eclipses, the rising and setting of Venus, the movements of Jupiter, the position of Saturn in the night sky. Night after night, year after year, many of these tablets, now housed in the British Museum, were studied by scholars such as Abraham Sachs and later Hermann Hunger. Their work revealed something remarkable. The Babylonians were not merely observing the heavens, they were tracking them mathematically. One tablet dating to 568 BC records. Day 14, the moon set. Venus appeared in the east. Another tablet carefully notes the constellation beside which Jupiter appeared on specific dates. These simple lines may seem ordinary today, but they are evidence that people were making systematic astronomical observations nearly 2,500 years ago. For them, the sky was not merely beautiful. It was a calendar, a compass, and sometimes a message from the gods. But the heavens were not the only thing being studied. The human body was as well. Hundreds of medical tablets uncovered during excavations opened another remarkable window into the ancient world. thanks to the translations published by scholars such as Irving Finkel and medical historian Joanne Scurlock, we can now read many of these ancient prescriptions. Some describe entirely herbal treatments. One tablet instructs, crush the mustard plant, mix it with fine beer, apply it to the wound. Another reads, mix cedar resin, plant oil, and honey. Apply the mixture to the affected area. Some prescriptions used milk, others date syrup, others wine, and some combined dozens of different plants into a single remedy. But the medicines themselves were not the only fascinating part. Some tablets placed incantations beside the treatments.
Ninkosi, she who is the heart of the house of healing.
First, the herbal mixture was prepared. Then, specific prayers were recited over the patient. Today, this may seem unusual, but for them, medicine and religion were never completely separate. They were two parts of the same understanding of the world. And then, another remarkable group of tablets began to emerge, the Omen texts. Perhaps some of the most fascinating documents ever discovered, because they reveal how ancient people tried to predict the future. One of the largest collections is known as Shuma Alu. It contains thousands of recorded omens. The logic often followed a simple pattern. If a bird flies from the north and lands on the roof of a house, it is a favorable sign for the king. Another tablet states, if a dog enters the temple through its gate, the city will enjoy a prosperous year. Another reads, if a child is born with 2 teeth, a great change is approaching the land. Other omen tablets reveal something even more unusual. Ancient scholars examined the livers of sacrificed sheep in an attempt to foresee the future. Today, this practice is known as hepatoscopy. The shape of the liver, its markings, its color, its surface. Every detail was carefully interpreted, because for them, the universe did not operate by chance. Every event was a sign, and every sign was a message waiting to be read. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice something important. So far, we haven't talked about aliens. We haven't mentioned hidden technology, starships, or even the Anunnaki. Because before discussing any of those ideas, we first need to understand something much more important. The people who wrote these tablets were far more human than many imagine. They worked, they became sick, they searched for cures, they traded, they paid taxes, they sent their children to school, they watched the night sky, they feared the future, and just like us, they tried to understand the world around them. It is at this point that the tablets begin to transform. They were no longer simply records of grain deliveries or livestock counts. People began asking deeper questions. Why are we here? How did kings first appear? Why does death exist? Why do great floods happen? How did the universe begin? And those questions produced some of the most extraordinary tablets ever discovered, because now the clay tablets contained far more than trade records. They contained humanity's earliest attempts to explain existence itself. One of the opening lines of the Epic of Gilgamesh, translated extensively by the British Assyriologist Andrew George, begins like this: I will tell of the one who saw everything. This was no inventory list. It was a story, a hero, a man searching for immortality, perhaps the first great literary masterpiece ever written. Then came the Epic of Atrahasis, translated and re-examined by scholars such as Stephanie Daly. It tells of gods who grew weary of labor, of humanity being created to share that burden, and of a great flood that would eventually reshape the world. Then another remarkable text emerged, Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. Its opening lines begin, "When the heavens above had not yet been named, and the earth below had not yet received its name." Humanity was no longer recording only its daily transactions. It had begun searching for answers about the universe itself. And in truth, researchers did not discover aliens. They discovered the memory of a civilization. But just as it seemed that everything was finally beginning to make sense, a new problem emerged, because not everyone reading these ancient texts reached the same conclusions. One scholar's translation differed from another's interpretation. One author saw history, another saw mythology, a third saw symbolism. The very same tablet began telling different stories, depending on who was reading it, and over time, what the tablets actually said and what people claimed they said became increasingly difficult to separate. Perhaps that is where the greatest confusion surrounding these ancient texts truly began. For 5,000 years, these clay tablets remained silent. They never changed. What changed was the people who read them. And perhaps the real question was never what was written on the tablets. The real question is, are we reading them correctly? Starting today, we are setting out on a long journey, beginning with the next episode. Each video will focus on a single question. We will open one tablet, examine one text, line by line, word by word, and whenever possible, we will listen to the text itself before we listen to the interpretations. For the first time, we will do this together. We will begin with no assumptions, no theories, no predetermined conclusions, because sometimes, to truly understand an ancient civilization, you must first separate its own voice from all the voices that came after it. See you in the next episode.